Sanctuary is directed by Zachary Wiggin and stars Christopher Abbott and Margaret Qualley. She plays a dominatrix and he plays Hale, her wealthy client. And we watch the disaster that ensues when Hal tries to end their relationship, if you can call it one. If you haven't heard of Sanctuary yet, it's playing in somewhat of a limited release right now, but it can't be too limited because I was able to see it in Ohio. So odds are, if you search in a wide range around your house, you might be able to find the theater playing it. Or maybe not. I don't know. I had to drive to Cleveland to see it, but I was glad that I did because I'm a big fan of chamber pieces. A chamber piece is a film that takes place in pretty much one location, as Sanctuary does. This is almost entirely in a hotel room where we watch Hale, who has this scripted scenario that he would like to play out a certain way, play out that way to a point. Because Margaret Qualley's character, Rebecca, has different ideas of how the evening should play out. It's funny because I didn't know Sanctuary was a chamber piece. I went to see it knowing very little about it, just some images and some basic ideas from the trailer. And so I was very excited to find out that it was as the film progressed because coincidentally, lately, I've been watching a lot of them on purpose because I wrote one recently and I've been trying to research them and watch every chamber piece I could get my hands on to really think about the techniques that they use and how they move characters around rooms and things along those lines. And what I've learned about them is that most of them, not all of course, but most of them are at least kind of good to great. And I think that's because writers are I think we're like self-conscious when we're writing a chamber piece. We're self-conscious about everything we write, but especially a chamber piece, because you're forcing your characters to only be able to do things in one spot. You can't rely on other locations. You can't rely on giant set pieces, none of the tricks of the trade, so to speak. You have to just basically treat your script almost like a play, and a lot of chamber pieces in film are based off of plays. So I think limiting a writer's resources and abilities and what they can normally do with characters in a script activates a part of their brain that forces this creativity out of them that they might not have had if they were relying on other tricks of the trade, so to speak, because you've got to make the dialogue interesting. The scenes really have to be compelling, and sometimes it is just a scene. There's a really great, somewhat unknown at this point, one with Sissy Spacek and Anne Bancroft called Night Mother. There's an excellent one called The Sunset Limited directed by Tommy Lee Jones starring him and Samuel L. Jackson. Richard Linklater's Tape is another really good one with Ethan Hawke, Robert Sean Leonard, and Uma Thurman, and that one was shot entirely on mini DV tape. The Man from Earth is also phenomenally written and acted, and of course, classics like 12 Angry Men. This kind of film can offer a lot, and it's strange, because if you read reviews for these movies, they're often looked down upon. People sometimes say that they shouldn't be movies, they should be plays. And that confuses me, and honestly angers me. I love the idea of just watching two people or a group of people get through something in a space, and I think that is so fascinating. Most recently, Women Talking by Sarah Polley was a great one. She won the Oscar for that. It's not quite the same because they do go outside of the barn where they talk, but it is mostly in there, and it requires that level of patience from a writer. Sanctuary has scene after scene after scene of beautiful dialogue delivered by two incredible actors. Christopher Abbott is phenomenal in this movie. He, of course, has certain preferences. He likes to be humiliated and wants to make sure that he feels that way all the time, but it's not just for some sort of physical gratification. It's how he lives. That's how he feels. He doesn't think he's anything special, but the movie is also about him coming to terms with that for his whole life, and not just these little sessions that he has with Rebecca. Margaret Qualley, however, is stellar. She is so good and terrifying, but also very, very funny. It's one of the best performances I've seen so far this year. She was magnificent. What was so thrilling about this movie was that immediately from the first 10 minutes, they established that these two characters are working off of a script. A script that Hale wrote and he would like her to perform. Right down to actions, and everything is very specific. He might as well be a film director. And at some point, they go off script. And the film makes you aware of that because he's like, "Whoa, whoa, I didn't tell you to say that." And they jump back on the script, and you know they're on the script. But at some point, the line between is this what Hal wanted her to do, or is she off script blurs. And you no longer know if they're in his fantasy that he created, or if this is really happening right now. If these are real emotions and real feelings. And that becomes fascinating because they also establish that Hal really gets into the performance of it. He really likes to be part of this scenario that he's created, and so during certain intense moments, interactions between them, you have to wonder, is this all part of what he wanted this whole time, or is she really taking control of this situation and turning it into something more horrifying for him? And as she tightens the screws of the things that she's threatening to do to him, the movie just becomes even more fascinating. What is so difficult about chamber pieces, and really any film, but especially, I think, chamber pieces, is ending them. Because you have to justify why you've been in a space for 90 minutes or however long. You really have to feel as audience members like, yeah, I get why we never left this place. And why this had to happen here. It's very difficult to do. A lot of films fumble that part, but Sanctuary, I think, really knocked it out of the park. I love the ending for this movie, and as stressful and difficult it is to sometimes watch these characters go through what they're going through, when you start to see humanity really creeping in there, and you get a sense that that really is them, that really is how they feel, that's when the movie went to another level for me. I thought this was absolutely fascinating. Two incredible performances, two great characters, amazing writing, great directing. It never felt stale. It moved like lightning. I really love this movie. If you are a fan of chamber pieces, I think this is one of the better ones I've seen in recent years. I hope you guys can check it out in the theater. Thank you so much as always for watching. Look forward to more videos very soon.